In this video, I'll be showing you the basics of animation in Blender so you can get started on your animation journey. I'll talk further, let's get started. So I'm gonna start off by deleting everything and adding a cube. So where does the animation process happen? Well, it doesn't happen here, and no one prefers to do it here. Just do it in the layout by dragging this part up. So this is your timeline. If you press space, it's gonna play. So if I go back to frame 1, I'm gonna select the object and I want to animate the cube going up and then going down. How can I do something like this? Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to keyframe it. Now keyframe it by going here to the transforms of the cube, and hovering over the location, pressing I, and going to the rotation, pressing I. Now we're not gonna be using the rotation, but I'm still gonna keyframe it. So you see it added this orange line or this orange dot. Now if you play, nothing's gonna happen. That's because we still need to move it to the position we wanted to move it to / animate it to. So let's say that on frame 40, I want to move it up. So I'm gonna select the cube G, Z, and move it up here. And do not move the timeline or do not play the timeline again, because if you move it, you're gonna lose your progress. So I'm gonna move it up and I'm gonna right click, insert keyframes. Now if I go to frame 0, you see it moves up and it has this like it fades out or it smooths out. This is something called interpolation. So if I select all of the keyframes, I right click, I can go here to interpolation mode. So if I make it linear, it's gonna move at a stable speed. So if I play, you see it just all of a sudden stops. But if I go here and make it Bezier, it's gonna smooth out at the end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move to frame 45, insert the keyframes again, and you see it created this connection. This means that there has been no changes in the location or the rotation of the object, so nothing's gonna happen. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to frame 80 and just move it down like this, right click, insert keyframes. Now if I go back here, see this was what happens. Pretty simple. Now the same thing applies to rotation. So if I rotate this like that, insert keyframes, you see it rotates back like this. Why did it rotate, or why did it go back to the original rotation on frame 40? Because when we initially inserted the keyframes, the rotation was here. But if I rotate it to be something like this, insert keyframes, you see this is what happens. And the reason it's pinned back so fast is because, again, on frame 45 it was here. So if I try to match it like this, you see this is what happens. Now I could end the frame here at frame 80 and just play it again. This is what happens. So what if you want to speed up this animation? Well, if you want to speed it up, you just pretty much make everything go to the left so it plays faster. So on frame 1, I'm just going to go into frame 20 and I'm going to select these and move them to here. And this from frame 80, I'm going to move it to frame 40. Now you see it moves faster. Now I could end this at frame 40. Now I could also change the interpolation mode and make it, for example, exponential like this. You see, it creates us this effect. Now, how do you actually render the animation? So rendering the animation is quite different to rendering a still image. So with the camera added, I'm not gonna add it for now, with all of the render settings and everything added, you're gonna go here to the output. So the frame rate is gonna be the frame rate that the animation plays on. So I recommend 30. You see it's gonna play faster, but it's gonna be also smoother than, for example, 23 FPS. You see there's a huge difference. If I make it 120, I believe you could see the difference. So the output folder, click here, go for example to your downloads and create a new folder and just name this animation. And for the file format, it's going to be FFmpeg video, encoding to be MPEG4, and everything else as this. When you press render, instead of pressing render image, you're going to press render animation. Now let's give you or show you an actual applied example of how animations or what type of animations you could do in Blender. So I've added this simple product, and what I'm going to do is I want to animate it moving up and rotating like this, for example, or rotating on the Y. So again, same thing, we're going to go to frame 1, and with this selected, I'm gonna go here and press I and I. Then I'm gonna play and I'm gonna go to frame 40. I'm gonna move it up and rotate it on the Y like this. Insert keyframes. You see, this is what happens. Now I could literally duplicate this and move it back like that. And for this, I'm gonna delete this keyframe and I'm gonna move it up, move it like this, and rotate it on the Y like that. Insert keyframes. Now I'm also gonna move its location here. Insert keyframes. So you see, we've done a simple product animation in Blender. Now let's actually go into creating the scene and rendering this. Now for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna be creating the scene from scratch. I'm just gonna use one of the Pro Scene packs. So I'm gonna copy this. So I'm gonna press Ctrl C. So I'm gonna open the Wormy Rock scene. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go here to the perfume. I'm just gonna hide everything. I'm gonna paste my bottles. I'm gonna move them here, go like this, and scale them up. Now you see, if I play them, now I'm just gonna mess around with the scene a bit. So I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna go to frame 1, I'm gonna move it here, move it up like this, insert keyframes, frame 40, I'm just gonna delete this. I'm also gonna make this to be 30 FPS. Frame 40, I'm gonna move it up, rotate it on the Y, like that. Insert keyframes. This is how it's gonna look. I'm actually gonna make this a bit longer. Very nice. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. So I'm gonna delete this keyframe. I'm gonna move it here. I'm gonna push it up like that. Insert keyframes, go to frame 80, move it up and rotate it, just like that. Insert keyframes. End it at 80. See, this is how it looks. Now with the camera, I could just move it around to be something like that. And I'm gonna change the aspect ratio. So here's gonna be 1920 by 1080. I'm just gonna save this. I'm just gonna change a few things going on with the lighting. And I also wanna do the light linking. So if you don't know about light linking, I've created a video about this. And because this is a pre-made scene, so all of the render settings are correct, all I need to do now is just render it. So if you're interested in making a render process as simple as possible, make sure to check the link in the description. Besides this, see you in the next video.